let's say a very good afternoon to Jamie Jenkins. Jamie, how you doing, man?
I'm all good, Mike. I think the last time I had tequila, I think I was on a lad's holiday in Spain over 20 years ago, and my mate bought about 15 shots in half an hour, and I do not remember the rest of the day.
I mean, an awful lot of people get put off because of that kind of experience, and you know, I could have been put off by that kind of experience, but I haven't been. So it's normally not one of those drinks you should really touch during the daylight hours, but you know, we'll see how we get on.
No, but I think some people might be hitting the tequila with the Bank of England interest rate rise that have just gone up.
Well, that's exactly right.
Start off with that, Mike, actually.
Well, that's right. Well, let's talk about inflation because, you know, I think there's no doubt in anybody's mind. We were just talking about direct debits and how much money the electricity companies and power companies want from you now. It's almost impossible to see where this is going and where it finishes up, isn't it?
No, on the actual direct debits, my bank, Lloyds Bank, sent me a text the other day. I think probably from a fraud perspective, because they said that Octopus Energy or energy providers increasing your direct debit from £160 a month to £300 a month. So exactly with what you're saying. So I'll have to tell the kids to stop burning the electric on the Xbox.
Well, that's the thing. But also, the thing that I find pernicious about these direct debits is that they can do that, and they don't even need your permission. They can basically just go, I'll tell you what, you were paying 150, we're going to make it 300 now. And if you're on a tight budget, that's going to completely mess up your household expenses, isn't it?
No, indeed, no. Obviously, they would argue they'd rather have a big debt at the end of the year. They get the money up front. But some people obviously can't afford it. You just remind people, Mike, that if the direct debits do go up, your energy usage is still your energy usage. So you would get some of it back. But it might tip some people into kind of overdrafts.
No, but, you know, I'm sure you know a lot of people, as I do, who literally don't have any money left at the end of each month. And if they have to be quite careful about when they pay certain bills. And if you suddenly miss a chunk of money out of your account that you used to have, that throws everything out.
Yeah, and money's tight at the moment, Mike. So, yeah, these Bank of England interest rate rises. So let me just explain why you would increase interest rates generally to curb inflation, because that's what the Bank of England are saying. They put their tweet out saying that it's because of rising inflation, and they've got a target of around 2.5% is the Bank of England's inflation target. And inflation at the moment is running closer to 6 to 7%. So the Office for National Statistics do the official inflation numbers that they come out every month. And the key driver of inflation at the moment, as they've said, is down to kind of high increasing housing costs, household services, electricity, gas, fuel, exactly the stuff we've just been talking about. So, and a lot of these are external factors. So where interest rates kick into inflation, Mike, is that if you increase interest rates, it's like monetary policy is what it's talked about. You increase the interest rates. What that does is it may encourage some people to save more money so they don't spend as much in the economy. And a lot of people do have mortgage payments. And I'll talk about the impact of the interest rates on mortgage payments in a second, Mike. And if you've got a mortgage, obviously increasing the interest rates increases the cost. So what that means then is you increase the interest rates, it should reduce the amount of money circulating around the kind of the economy, competing for all these different goods and services, so it curbs inflation. But this inflation that we've got at the moment, Mike, is not consumer-led inflation, because people are having to pay for electricity, having to pay for gas, having to pay for fuel for their car, having to pay for food. People aren't suddenly wanting to buy more of it, which is putting the prices up. It's all external factors going up. So it's absolute madness that they're putting the kind of the inflation curbs with the interest rates. And I've just crunched some of the numbers, Mike, on this. So interest rates have been historically low. They've reduced them practically to the floor at 0.1% during the pandemic to try and get more money into people's pockets. But they've gone up now from 0.1% to 1% over the last several months. And what that means, Mike, for the average person, if they've got a £150,000 mortgage over 20 years, that's £777 a year that they're going to lose, basically, in terms of paying more out in interest payments. Now, the government said, we'll give you 150 quid council tax rebate. So basically, they've given 150 quid with one hand. The interest rate's taken all of that with the other hand and plenty more. Yeah. And that's an average across the country. If you're unfortunate enough to have a mortgage in Greater London, it's not £777 a year you're paying. It's going to be closer to £1,500 a year you're paying.
Well, that's right. And that starts to be something that you feel. And a lot of people, and also the council tax rebate is only for a very small number of people, isn't it? It's only for people in a particular band, and not very many people necessarily are in that band. And a lot of people have told me that they're due to get it, but they still haven't had it yet.
Yeah, indeed, Mike. And the thing is, just think who's hit most by these interest rate rises as well. Because, yeah, you might get a bit of a rebate if you're fortunate to get that. Basically, the higher mortgage payments are generally for younger people because they haven't paid as much off of their mortgages. So it hits them even more than the older people.
Yeah.
And some people have said to me, oh, well, interest rates should go up because lots of people have got investments, and if they put the interest rates up, older people will get more money on their saving. Well, these are still only fractions of percentages that are going up. So if you're rich enough that it's going up 0.25%, and if you're lucky enough for the bank to pass it on, that you actually see an impact in the money from your savings, then I don't think at this particular point in time, Mike, you need the money as well. And remember now, the governor of the Bank of England, his total package, when you start looking in terms of pay, pensions, £600,000 a year. These people who are making these decisions, Mike, are just not in touch with the real world and the real people out there.
No, they think they can squeeze a bit more out of what is already a completely sort of parched piece of fruit, if you like. There's nothing left. People haven't got any more wiggle room. They're already spending more money than they planned to spend this year. Some people are even making less money than they were maybe last year or the year before. Also, if you've gone back to work and you're suddenly having to travel, I'm sure this is part of the reason why a lot of people are still reluctant to go back to the office, because they don't want to spend the money on the trains.
Exactly that, Mike. And the cost of living crisis is hitting everybody pretty bad. Now, one of the arguments, I've talked about why you shouldn't increase interest rates. One of the things you've got to remember, right, we're in a world economy. So another thing that you need to consider, just to explain this one to the viewers, is that the interest rates are going up in some other countries. So the US put their interest rates up. I don't know how many people have got the memories, for the younger listeners, viewers, they won't know this. But back in the early 90s, we had mass interest rates because of the exchange rate mechanism in the UK. Yes. I'm sure you were probably covering it at the time.
Those were the days of, like Black Friday and stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, Black Friday, because interest rates and the value of the pound is linked to other kind of countries as well. So if a country puts their interest rates up, then people are interested in buying that currency more, so the value of the pound would go up. So if the dollar, if the Fed in the US start putting interest rates up, people want to buy dollars, which depreciates the value of the pound. So there's a whole load of factors going on, Mike. But, most people in this country at the moment, they're not worried about the values of the pounds and the values of the dollars. They just want to make sure they've got enough money to be able to pay their bills. And this is just another cost on top. You're talking £700 on a year on average over the last year going up, that people just don't need, Mike. You just do not need this.
No, absolutely right. Let's talk just finally about the travel business, because you've got some stats for us on that from the ONS in terms of, which countries people can go to. We've got half-term coming up, a lot of people trying to book holidays for their kids and themselves. What's the story?
Yeah, so people think now that you can go anywhere in the world quite freely, and that's not the case. Even in countries across Europe, you've got Germany, and where you can't actually go into Germany if you're unvaccinated unless you're a German citizen.
Does that apply to kids as well?
It applies to children, Mike, I think, yeah. And in Spain, you've got similar restrictions there, where you can only go in if you're fully vaccinated or you've got proof of a negative test. The problem with these proofs of negative tests, Mike, is that people are telling, the government now don't have a test anymore. So there's come a point where people have had COVID, but they haven't got any proof of it because we've been told not to bother getting tested. So I'm in the category now, Mike, as well with Spain, that if you had your second vaccine more than 9 months ago, which is what I'm in, and I didn't get a booster because I had COVID, I didn't think I needed, you basically, it doesn't count to go to Spain now. You've got to have a booster just to go on holiday, which is nonsense. Now, the reason I've just talked about the current restrictions for some of these countries, the reason this is all nonsense, Mike, is that the ONS have do an infection survey where they test random households across the country and they look at vaccination status. Now, if you had your second or third vaccine 3 to 6 months ago, which is the vast majority of people, because remember, the booster rollout was kind of going around December time last year. So the vast majority of people now had their last vaccine 3 to 6 months ago at least. And if you compare the likelihood of them testing positive for COVID, Mike, compared to somebody who's unvaccinated, it's exactly the same. It's exactly the same. And that's in part because what the vaccine companies have admitted themselves now is the vaccines wane after about 90 days. So if you're in Spain now, right, you've got this bonkers situation that if you're vaccinated, say, within the last 90 to 180 days, you can pop in, you can go in fine. If you're unvaccinated, very, very difficult. You've got to find proof of having a negative, having COVID in the past. But when you go to Spain, Mike, there's no difference between the two groups. They're discriminating continually is bonkers. And at least some countries are waking up, Mike, and getting rid of all this nonsense.
Well, exactly right. And I think a lot of people would like to see that, because an awful lot of people are still pretty confused about the whole thing. Jamie, listen, we've got to run. Thank you very much indeed.